Hi, Grant Ching Water Boxing Association, here with the third in a series of videos that will give an introduction to water boxing. So in this third video, I'd like to discuss stances. So in Zhu Ji, the foundational form, we essentially have three primary stances. Four if you count this neutral stance here, but let's not count that for now. So the three stances are the 90-10 stance, the 60-40 stance, and the 70-30 stance. Not necessarily in that order, and in fact, you could probably argue that the 70-30 and the 60-40 are the most common of those three. I'm going to give a little bit of a demonstration of Zhu Ji toward the beginning, which we will then use as a entry into the different stances. So in that sequence, we have the three primary stances. The first in that sequence that you may have seen was a 90-10 stance. The reason why I refer to it as a 90-10 stance is because it's probably the most important thing in the beginning to understand the weight distribution. After you understand the weight distribution, more of the technical aspects come into focus. So the 90-10 stance, sometimes called, I think, the cat stance, is this stance here. From the front. So the 90-10 refers to about 90% of your weight on the back foot and about 10% of your weight on the lead foot. The next stance is the 60-40 stance. The 60-40 stance, 60% of your weight on the back foot and about 40% of your weight on the lead foot. From the front. The third stance is the 70-30 stance. The 70-30 stance, 70% of your weight is on the front foot and about 30% of your weight is on the back foot. From the front. So in the beginning, I like to teach the weight distribution because I think that gives you an idea of the qua, of the length, the height, and the width of the stance. In the beginning, we train it as a stationary posture, but later on, once you get a better understanding of the weight distribution, of the qua, of the height, width, and length, then you begin to put together how it can be used in a more dynamic combat focus in terms of the martial arts. One thing to pay attention to is that in some schools of water boxing, you will see that they tend to be very, very low. They tend to get very, very low. There is a reason why we don't do that, and it's partly because the more you get into the combat aspects of the art, the more I think you start to realize that a very extreme low stance or a very extreme high stance in some cases can actually hinder your ability to do what, generally speaking, a stance would be intended for, which is to give you structure and to give you force, both taking force as well as exerting it. We will probably talk about that in a later video, but I hope you enjoyed this one. Leave me any questions or comments. Grant Ching Water Boxing Association.